What if your CQC rating one day depended on your use of AI? Today, we're talking about how AI isn't just changing care delivery, it's going to reshape the entire system from local authorities to frontline staff. My name is Dave Mance, and my guest today is Charles Cross. Charles is director of Ashley Care, domiciliary care provider, and he's co-founder of Emma AI, which helps organisations provide high-quality, person-centred care using frontier tech. Charles, welcome to the pod.
Thanks, Dave.
Now, you are one of those people who makes me feel slightly sort of inferior because you seem to have done like twice as much as me, even though you're sort of half my age. But it'd just be good to hear like a bit about your career so far. Yeah, your whole journey. Go and tell us a bit about yourself.
Yeah, I think it's taken an unusual route into social care. I started, and my background is a family-run care business, so I've known it from a very young age. We've cared for my grandparents, for example, and I've been around care. It wasn't necessarily the career that I thought I was going to go into, but having spent some time when I finished university, I found that the sector is just, you don't get energy like it. And working with the people day in and day out. And actually, it was the people in the business and the impact that we could have with the people we were caring for that really just initially drew me to it. I mean, just hearing stories of our care team going in right at the start of the day, all the way through to the night. And I thought, and increasingly thought, this is an area where we can have real impact and we can make a real difference. So I went on the journey. As you say, I acquired Ashley Care after that. There's another podcast on that, but it had regulation breaches, special measures, and continued to go through the journey of both digitalizing, bringing a new perspective to what we could do within care. I think just taking our journey back as well of what that time really looked like. So we're talking around 2018, 2019, and we didn't really see the proliferation of digitization at that stage. We brought that into the services, and I think now that's commonplace. And it's interesting, you kick us off with, will the CQC only give you good if you're using AI? Well, I think there's already elements of that happening now. I mean, even if you look at the reports we've had from recent CQC inspections, someone received outstanding in well-led or outstanding in innovation under the new single assessment framework. So I think the Care Quality Commission has been burnt slightly in the sense that I remember the days where there was hesitation around digitization and there was a lot of question marks over how much efficiency could it bring and what was the safety and efficacy of using it. And they say that history doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes. And I'm no musician, but I'm sensing some rhythmic patterns here. So yeah, I'm since doing that, I really wanted to make a bit of a bigger impact. And with our co-founder, George, so his background is in computer vision and machine learning and was an AI researcher himself. And like all good ideas, they start, but once you've got it, you have this insatiable drive in order to make it happen. And I think we both had the moment where we couldn't wait. We have challenges right now within the sector. We have pressures that we need to face in order to ensure that we're caring for people in a really person-centered, high-quality way, and that's becoming increasingly difficult. So we co-founded Emma AI to bring frontier technology to social care. We wanted to give social care providers we wanted to give them access to technology that we believed if we weren't going to do it ourselves, we would be waiting years for it. And as long as we are doing this in the most ethical and safe way possible, and if you look at some of the work we've done with the Oxford University around the ethical use of AI in social care, we understand the safety of implementing this technology. We've taken many steps throughout this process in order to have guardrails on generative AI and the use of AI. And I think we have a unique position of me coming from a care provider's perspective that we have co-produced this not only with myself, but with our teams, our managers, frontline carers, but also frontline service users.
That is crazy that yeah, you were saying about the sort of suspicion around digitization, and it does seem so daft now, and yet, like you say, it's something which is kind of coming around all over again, and we'll no doubt look back in the same way on AI. I'm kind of interested. I don't want to I don't know if it's right to go into this right now, but just that point on the guardrails, like what does that actually look like? How do you keep data safe?
Yeah, it's a really important point. How do you keep data safe? And I was fortunate enough to be an innovation fellow at Mid and South Essex Integrated Care System and understood data security from the NHS perspective. But let me go back to what we've done here at Emma. First of all, public access AI is something that's changed all of our lives. I think we now all use it on a day to day basis. I remember when we were first speaking about it over 2 years ago when we launched Emma, and almost 50% of the room and then 75% of the room as we went on
Mm,
would say, yes, I use these tools. And although there's great optimism in that, and it can show you the speed of adoption because of how easy these tools are to use. And I think that really underpins the value of AI and the step change between digital software as a service products and AI first solutions. So to go back to the guardrails specifically, this is not ChatGPT for care. And I think some people assume that because the way in which we interact with AI through different companies, they're all doing the same thing. This is not the case. And we'll find that both in initial instances around hallucinations and safety, in terms of the answers that are being provided, we've had to put guardrails there. You cannot just use the public access AI for multiple reasons. One being ensuring that any of your queries or questions or anything that you're asking of the AI is actually feeding into their training data. And I think that's one really important myth to put out there, and something that is definitely true. And people need to be ensured that they're not putting patient identifiable data through these public access AI. I think that's really important. And second of all, the foundational technology of AI is improving at such pace. But it's also, and I think crucially, is this isn't about replacing any person, both within a management team or a care team. It's augmenting them in order for the documentation and regulatory burden that we have to not get in the way that the care that we're delivering. So the way in which that we've built this AI and co-produced it, we give 100% visibility and transparency. So when you have an AI answer, you need to be able to verify this within seconds, gain the source material, see the references, and then you'll be able to have trust and confidence. Without that, and you can't see that with many of the public access AI, you just assume things to be true. And we can't make assumptions within health and social care. So we've really focused on that. And then in addition to that, there's certain, let's say there's workflows across your business. So you might be, for example, doing a care assessment, and there's such rich data that you have throughout the care assessment, and you want to ensure that the actual care plan and risk assessments or support plan that you produce for that person is completely accurate and person centered. Well, first of all, you need to ensure that only your organization data and that rich recording that you have of the individual and the conversation with them, maybe their family members, maybe their social worker, is the only data being used so that the AI can create that care plan and risk assessment. So that's really step one, is to make sure that it's really honed in and focused and tailored to your organization and the people that you're caring for. And then, as I say, step two is really around design. I think when we look back on AI and we see that for consumers, it's fine for it to be a black box system. But for us as organizations, and then layer on top of that, organizations within health and social care, we cannot trust a black box system. But I would say to that, this is not a technology problem, this is a design problem. And we've solved it through both the way in which you interact with Emma and also some of the validation and visibility that we have across how the AI actually performs.
Okay, yeah, that all makes sense. So, why is like, tell us a bit about like why like AI is such a big deal. Like, why is natural language processing? How is that kind of? Why is that such a massive leap forward?
I think the best way to answer this is understanding where we are and what we're using today. So let's say that a carer is delivering care currently for someone within a residential home. Let's take that example. And they are then having to go onto a device, a mobile device, and note down exactly what they've done. And that was a step change from writing that down in handwriting. And you could see that there's going to be many benefits in analyzing that information. But then that information's housed, right? It's static, it's within your database. And then in order to both retrieve, analyze, or reference that information, you have to dive into your system and find out exactly what you needed. Now, if you're conducting a provider information return for the CQC, you're conducting a service level audit for your service, or a regional level audit if you're a larger company, you can then understand that you're not just looking at reviewing one person's care delivery, you're reviewing tens, if not hundreds. And then on top of that, you might not just be reviewing care delivery, you might be reviewing your quality and governance processes. So any audits that have been carried out in terms of the visit note audits, the medication audits, and then you can see that over and above that, you also then got maybe your absence management and any HR issues you might have. So you can see that, and often we have different digital tools for each. So it's not just diving into one system for one piece of information, it's diving into one system for thousands of data points, and then another system for another hundred, if not thousands of data points. And then someone's going to have to triangulate that and then put that into one answer in order to complete your audit and know, and fundamentally just know, how good am I delivering care? We should really, in the instance of talking of frontier technology, also remember to distill everything down. Why are we doing this? We need to make sure that the people we're caring for are meeting their outcomes, they're receiving person-centered care, and the team delivering the care are both supported and feel that they are making a difference. And we do everything in order to facilitate that on an organization level, but our technology doesn't help towards that. So there's really 2 points. There's one is the friction and the data desert, if you want to put it that way, because you almost have too much information and then you don't have enough because you couldn't possibly analyze it. So the analysis of natural language is something that wasn't previously unlocked prior to a few years ago. And then you can see how you can make more data-led decision making with natural language. And our Emma Analytics product does exactly that, both flagging in real time things that you need to focus on. So that will help with resource allocation. But then I would say that one of the biggest things that Emma is really unlocking, and this hasn't been done before, and that is a new data set. And that is all of the natural language that you have in your organization. And what do I mean by that? Well, you might have weekly meetings with your team. You might have weekly audits of services. You might have senior management team meetings. You might have multidisciplinary team meetings with district nurses, physios, OTs, and you obviously have various meetings with your HR processes. Now, what if every single piece of information, every rich conversation, where there's often an endless amount of actions to then get to the outcomes, was all stored, and you almost have this natural language via voice and recording new data set? And that is the true way that your business operates. Within your SaaS products, you might have certain fields which outline certain characteristics of the people you care for, certain details around the services that you provide. But in reality, what runs that business? The people. And what do people do? They speak to the other people in your business. So you can see how actually, when you look at it, the part that's in your system is actually a small part of how your business actually operates. And really the natural language and the conversations and everyone bouncing off and trying to drive your business and organization forward, that's actually the rich information. And that's what we're trying to unlock, as well as doing everything that you'd already be doing within your SaaS products. And I think when you take that aspect of natural language and the power of AI, you can not only drive better outcomes and efficiencies, but you'll probably have a better understanding of how your business actually operates and how you can then tailor your business to get to the outcomes, whether it be financially, whether it be in terms of care outcomes or team performance.
the bit that blows my mind, which I take for granted all the time, is like just the fact there's almost no barrier between me and a computer now. Like the fact that you can talk to a computer, which, you sort of forget because we're kind of getting a bit used to AI now, but the fact that you don't have to like interact in this clunky way. And I think that's, like I was helping an organization implement a CRM recently, and they were kind of saying, okay, let's just get this in, and like, yeah, let's not touch the AI bit yet because that's more advanced. Like, no, that's actually the simpler bit. The fact that you can just go, hey, like you're saying, what's going on with this particular client, and get an answer back in natural language. So, yeah, it's crazy stuff. It's very cool. Now, so you're talking about opening up those lines of communications within an organization, but I know that you personally, and you as Emma AI, you've got a vision to kind of break down the boundaries across the whole sector, and in terms of like all the different bodies that provide care, hospitals, councils, care providers. How can Emma AI help with that?
Yeah, I think some of my experience of running a care provider is that you really realize how many different teams and services it takes to meet the outcomes of those, whether it's in a community or residential or nursing service. And actually, social care, as we know, is intrinsically linked with healthcare and the NHS. And often we're working together to deliver the outcomes for the person. And when you take that as your starting point, we need to reimagine what health and social care can look like without the current barriers that we have from a data perspective. Now, I fundamentally believe that if we can solve the data flows across health and social care and local government, we could have a system that operates with far more efficiency, is far more cost, it will cost a lot less due to that friction that's inbuilt. And actually, you'll find that everyone's aligned to the most real-time information about that individual, and therefore the outcomes of the individual will be better. And what does that lead to? That leads to happier, longer lives for that person. And that is, if that's our ultimate goal, then how do we get there if we were to start from scratch on how that works? So currently, if 70% of care is being commissioned by local government, and local government have their own team that both assesses, reviews, and commissions care, these are really important functions and definitely important checks and balances that are required because of the large extent of government spending into the sector. But we're all working off different data. And to me, it has to fundamentally change, whether that be through the local government, as I've said, or the NHS, or the care provider. We have to all be working off of the same information. And frankly, that's going to be miles better for the person, because what currently happens within the system is that they'll interact with 3 or 4 different teams to gain the same information, and then they'll have different views and perspectives, potentially on which day that they visit or which time of the day that they visit that person. They might be fit and well and a morning person and jump out of bed sprightly, and the social worker goes then and reviews their care need, and then they are more tired and their mobility declines in the evening, something really as fundamental as that. And you'll find that a care provider might then do a review in the evening, and a social worker might be doing a review during the morning. And then you have 2 different views of how that person is. And I think there's 2 problems with that. There's one, that we all have unique expertise and skills. So both the social workers have some of that clinical information and knowledge of how to best get to the outcomes for that individual, ensure that they're safeguarding their needs. And then you have the care provider that really comes from that holistic view of how do we meet all of the goals that they're looking to achieve. Maybe that's social, so they want to go to a day service, or other parts of their life, like their family and friends, etc. And then we have district nurses and OTs and physios maybe come from a point of mobility and making sure that person's strong. So you can really see how there's so many people that are involved in someone's care. And if we were to redesign the system, I think we would all agree that we would have that information stored in one area. Now, there has been efforts to do this. I think the shared care records is one step, but it's fundamentally, I believe, flawed in some aspects because it's static documentation. It's not a continual analysis of that person over time, which brings me to the second problem with what I mentioned before, and that is we cannot be assessing people's care and how much care that they have and what their outcomes might be just from one meeting, one snapshot in time. And previously, in order to get the most out of someone's care, we would make a plan for the future. We might have a plan for them in 6 months' time. What do we want to achieve? And then the same for 12 months. But we can't review and go back 6 to 12 months for every single person, every single time. And this is the opportunity of AI. We now are not time constrained by analyzing information, especially natural language information. So if we could really understand, okay, how's that person deteriorated or how's that person improved over time? Are there certain triggers around what's causing falls or a decline in their health? Maybe it's something to do with their nutrition or hydration. And we should be allowing AI to do that over a longer period of time. So if we bolt those two together, bring together health and social care and MDT teams, we presented at the local government association innovation showcase around a Care Act assessment generator, which actually pulls information from care providers and also uses our voice assessments to be able to record that assessment and then provide that Care Act assessment or review for that social worker. So we're getting the context of the multidisciplinary teams, which is so important. And then we bolt onto that the natural language and everything we just previously spoke about. We could get a world where we just ask the AI to pull in the information from the care provider, pull in the information from the physio, and then tell me how does that person want their care delivered. And it's that combination and that holistic view that we're trying to facilitate. And currently we're doing that right now. And we think that's a really exciting way to imagine health and social care moving forward. And I think the biggest opportunity there is both people entering hospital and coming out of hospital. There is so much friction, there are so many teams involved, and there's so much confusion within data and the information about an individual when they go in hospital and when they come back out, both in terms of some of their basic medical needs, but also in terms of, okay, what's the plan to get that person back to base level? So reablement and some respite services. So we believe if we're all working off one data set, we all have a common goal, and that goal is with the person's views at heart. And the way we get that is by recording that conversation. We could reimagine how local government and care providers interact with each other.
Sounds like you have some, you're getting pretty positive responses when you're sharing those ideas and the tech. What is kind of holding it back from happening?
When you look back previously, I think rightfully within anything to do with health and social care, we need to ensure that whatever technology we're implementing is tested, it's ethical, and it has both, it's been co-produced with care providers and co-produced with service users. And I think that taking the time to do that is extremely important. I think that care providers always have a million and one things to do. I was one, so I definitely know that. I think you speak to anyone in the sector, they've got a whole to-do list that's extremely long. And also there has to be willingness. And I think we're still early. We're still really early in this journey. And as there's more use cases, as the technology becomes more widespread in a safe way that organizations can use, just as consumers have used with these foundational models, you will see, I believe, one of the most rapid adoptions of technology, even considering the government-backed adoption of digital tech. I think it's going to be even faster than that. And why is it going to be even faster than that? Because the interface with AI first technology is intentionally conversational. And that conversational interface is easy as messaging your family and friends. And I think once you can get to that point, which we're there, but more people will be able to see that for themselves, then I think you're going to see a rate of adoption that's extremely fast. Let me share an example. There was one organization that unfortunately, one of the care providers in the local area had their home office license revoked. Something that we're seeing more of as the home office are conducting more audits. And I think we all understand the modern slavery challenges or issues within the sector. There's also a lot to be said for the positive that comes out of international recruitment. And despite the changes, I do want to just flag that there's been huge positives, and I'm a strong believer in it. But this provider had their home office license revoked. There was a immediate suspension of all contracts for that provider within the local area, and that left many individuals, approximately 35 individuals, without care. As part of that, the council asked this care provider in particular to assess 14 of those individuals. And actually, because of the emergency in nature in which there was modern slavery occurring, this had to happen within a 72-hour period. Now, in order to assess 14 individuals across three people, only three individuals, three individual assessors in this case, it wouldn't have been possible. And it certainly wouldn't have been possible safely and ethically, and ensuring that all the information was person-centered and done correctly. And I think every care provider out there would know that this would be an extremely tall order to get this done in the correct way. This care provider had Emma voice assessments. So their assessors went out with the Emma app. It takes around 10 seconds to get to the point of clicking record. They recorded the assessment that took place, that rich information, discussing someone's life history and going back into where they used to work and their family, etc. And maybe that would take an hour and a half, 2 hours, depending on the assessment conducted. And then they came back to their desk, and Emma AI had drafted their care plan, their risk assessments, all of their risk assessments as well, spanning across moving and handling, medication, COSH, multiple hydration, nutrition, etc. And that was 90% complete. Now, I only say 10% because of the verification. It's not for AI to replace what the human does, it's to augment them and to allow them to do their job much more easily. So what happened there, and then just to bolt onto that, Emma AI has governance baked in. So every interaction with Emma automatically generates traceable data. Who asked what guidance was given, what documents were reviewed, and that makes it the governance enabler and not just convenience. So we've got that baked in. So they've come back, their care plan and risk assessments were done, and they went and conducted that next assessment. That start to finish time was around a 65% improvement in time taken to conduct an assessment. Now, if you extrapolate that over the 14 people they had to assess within 72 hours, they were able to do that. And that's really the difference. You end up with a better assessment of that person's care needs because it's coming directly from the service user's voice, so how they at the heart of the care. And then you have the efficiencies and productivities of using AI, and then just the verification through the visibility and transparency of clicking see sources below every AI answer. So that is a real life adoption of AI that led to this care provider doing something that wasn't previously possible. And if that's not an example of how we can positively affect social care, I don't know what is. So there you are.
Yeah, no, that's very good. I love the way you keep, you're a tech founder, but you keep coming back to the people, and that's what it's all about, like you keep saying. So let's go, I guess, sort of coming full circle where we kind of began that, will you one day have to have AI in order to sort of pass your CQC or to get good, let alone outstanding? And you sort of talked about it being, it's happening already in terms of innovation, but do you really see it happening in terms of across the board? Do you see it almost being as kind of expected as, someone using Rota software now? Like, where do you see it going?
I think that there is definitely 2 points to that. There's both, you will only be able to obtain the CQC good with AI, and I'm confident within 5 years' time, possibly slightly longer, depending on adoption, that will be the case. And also, another reason why the adoption of AI is so fundamental is because I believe it's going to be one of few solutions that allow us to actually run a sustainable care business in 2025 or 2026, 7, 8. And I'm saying now because it's not the future. I would say it's not AI is not the future, it's the present. It's now. You can adopt it. So there's 2 points. So let's start with the CQC good. Let's look at what AI can do, and I can drill this down into Emma Analytics. We run AI through all of your data all of the time, every single day, 24/7. And we're flagging things that you can configure yourselves around someone's well-being, for example. So there might be flags of someone becoming distressed. They might have a pressure sore, or they might be confused. Is that due to a UTI? Could there be a potential for falls because of that? We already know the link between caffeine and falls. Is that something where AI can even help with even more in terms of when people should be eating and drinking at different times? But let's get back to Emma Analytics. So you set out your flags, what you want to be brought up to your managers in order to action. And let's say you have 10 flags. So when people are refusing certain activities, whether you're having medication issues within your organizations that you need to respond to and then complete an audit on that, whether it's something to do with the visit note content and you're not actually describing how that person appeared both on arrival and departure or at the start of your shift and the end of the shift. And you can also do that with handovers that happen. And are we capturing all the information on handovers to give that next person all the information that they need? If you have your flags, it's flagging up to your manager. Your manager's then being proactive because no one's told the manager that these flags have happened, that the person's becoming distressed or that the person's mobility is rapidly declined, and possibly they are, and they should be. But doing this all the time, every single day, and allowing AI to do this so nothing is missed, we call Emma Analytics the AI safety net for your care organization. And I almost think that's something money can't buy, but it is actually something you can buy. But yeah, so you have Emma Analytics, and I believe that the CQC, when you look at what do they look for and what does good look like within the CQC, having a really strong and robust quality and governance process, both in terms of flagging, but then how do you evidence what you've done from that? And this is another opportunity of AI. It's not just a case of flagging, notifying, and then an action being taken. It's how can you then use AI for that workflow? So you ask Emma, please conduct a medication review or audit. Please conduct a visit note audit now of that person. I'm going into a supervision. Please can you review the last 6 months worth of care delivery for that individual? And actually allowing AI to conduct the workflow as well and give you another 80, 90% complete audit review of that person is not only just a huge time saver, but you're using a you're using a significant amount more information via AI than you would be via a person. So we need to give the person the ability to have these tools. And then you can see how robust the evidence is going to be about how you run this organization because the AI is automatically generating a lot of that evidence for you. And then you're orchestrating the AI. And that is also another way of looking at things. And I think will be the future of a manager's job is that they don't have to be everywhere all at once, all of the time. The AI is doing that. So their time can be focused. The resource that you're allocating to your teams can be focused. And then that's going to produce financial benefits in terms of wastage of people's resource allocation as well and workforce management. So I think it's pretty holistic, both from the quality front, the governance front, getting the most out of your team, and for the individual, what does that look like? I think this is a really important point that the people receiving care will still receive care in the same way. I'm not a big believer that robots are going to overtake anytime soon. I know that everyone says they use them in Japan, though. Yeah, I don't know if I see that, and I think they cost over £100,000 per robot. So I don't believe that conducting moving and handling processes through a robot's going to be a solution to anything. And that person-to-person contact is just so valuable. So for the service user, these things are not going to change. But what if, due to the adoption of AI, your team becomes so much more efficient, you can pay £1 more, £1.50 more, £2 more. You can add in some employee benefits of healthcare, or they can have discounts in some of the shops that they attend. How can it's all about resource allocation, and if you can redirect budgets to the frontline care delivery and frontline carers who are delivering this care, that you're going to have a happy, more motivated, more stable, better retained team. And that's the difference that the service users and people that you care for are gonna really feel.
Yeah, we again, this is another podcast, and I can say that podcast has already been done. In that, I listened to another interview of yours where it was is it the Social Care Leaders Network, and you were talking about this whole thing of like, because of the situation we're in, the various sort of factors and pressures that are on the sector right now, like you're being expected to do more with less, and that's kind of what you're touching on there. But yeah, if you want to, by all means, listen to that one. It's good. It's another great episode. Charles, thank you so much. I love your sort of your mission, as well as your terrifying kind of ability to do stuff when you still look like a kid, pretty much.
It's good exercise routine. That might help. I don't know. But no, I appreciate it, Dave. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak about Emma. We're going to continue our journey over the next few years and beyond. We are looking for partners, people that we can collaborate with, understand your businesses. With Emma Enterprise, we partner with organizations. We're not just selling to you. We really want to understand how your business works, what are your processes, what are your workflows, and how we can make a real impact. And conversations like this almost gives us an opportunity to go under the bonnet and really explore what we're doing. And yeah, I appreciate your time.
No, awesome. All right, that's it for today. I'm Dave Mance, founder of Frank Care Marketing, and yeah, join us again next time for another AI in Social Care podcast.
Thanks so much.